Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. Introduce. My name is Rini Mei Hastuti from Universitas Muhammadiyah Purwokerto. I will present the results of my research entitled Comparison of the Effectiveness of Learner Learning Outcomes between the Inquiry Approach and the Verification Approach with the Experiment Method. In abstract, the purpose of the study was to analyze the comparison of learning outcomes between experimental classes that received learning treatment using the inquiry approach experimental method and control classes that received learning using the experimental method with a verification approach. Quasi-experiment with pretest post-test design is the type and design of research. While the research sample this time was grade 6 student of SD Negeri 2 Purwojati and grade 6 SD Negeri 3 Gerturin. Hypothesis testing using t-test, paired sample t-test. Through this test, a significance value of 0 was obtained, so HO was rejected and HA was accepted. The results prove that the learning outcomes of experimental class students get a better average post-test score than the average post-test score obtained by students in the control test. Introduction. Expectation. Natural science learning in elementary school basically aims to make students not only understand the theory but can apply it in their daily lives. Reality. Science learning is not optimal in the aspect of developing science thinking because so far experiments have only been carried out to prove concept or theory. The experimental method with the inquiry approach refers to experimental activities with the aims of laying the foundation and process of developing student scientific thinking. Solution. The solution over is to apply the inquiry experimental method. Relevant research. Research title. Perbedaan penggunaan metode eksperimen dengan pendekatan inquiry dan verifikasi terhadap hasil belajar siswa. Prismanisi 2016. The class that received the inquiry experiment treatment was better than the average value obtained by the class that received learning using the verification method or the informative approach. Method. Type of research. Quasi-experimental design. Research population 6th grade students in the Permadani cluster area, Purwojati sub-district. Sample 6th grade of 2 Purwojati Elementary School and 6th grade of 3 Gerturen Elementary School. Sampling technique. Purposive sampling. Research design. Pre-test, post-test, control group design. Research instrument. Test, observation, documentation. Prerequisite test analysis, normality test, and homogeneity test. Hypothesis testing, paired sample test. There are two hypotheses designed, namely, there is no difference in learning achievement between the experimental class that received learning with the inquiry experimental method and the control class that received learning with the verification experiment method. There is a difference in learning achievement obtained by the experimental class using the syntax of the inquiry experiment method and the control class applying the learning flow with the verification experiment method. Result. The average pretest score in the experimental class was 46.53 and the average post-test score was 75, while the average pretest score in the control class was 46.9 and the average post-test score was 66.2. Acquisition of the cognitive value of the experimental class was seen to experience positive things, namely from the average pretest score, which was originally 46.54, it increased to 75. The learning outcomes of the control class, namely the pretest average, which was originally 46.92, also increased in the post-test to 66.15. But this increase was lower than the experimental class. The experimental class is fostered in terms of constructing a concept so that their understanding is better. In the control group, students apply scientific concepts through more directed experiments. The verification experimental group is trained to analyze and verify the experiment presented by the teacher. They have taken advantage of the good opportunities provided by the teacher to be active subjects in learning, express reason, and understand concepts more purposefully and systematically. Although in the verification experiment method, students only test a concept. Students must be able to prove the concept based on their understanding. Mariani states that there are rules that can be used as a basic for making decisions on the t-test when we would form the significances value. How is accepted if the two-tailed sig value more than 0.05. HA is accepted if the significances value is lower than 0.05. Significances value for this research hypothesis test seen in the table is 0.00. That means lower than 0.05, indicating that HA is accepted means experimental and control cases that received different science learning treatments were given two tests, namely pre-test and post-test. Learners in the experimental class are guided to be able to construct understanding and find a concept based on the experiment they do. Learners in the control class prove a concept or theory. The result of the hypothesis test obtained a significances value of 0.00 or 0.05, which indicates if HA is accepted and HA is rejected. This research proved that there are changes in student learning outcomes after using the inquiry experiment method because science learning usually only uses the verification experiment method. This means that the inquiry approach has a positive impact on students' activities as evidenced by the acquisition of their learning outcomes. Thank you.